And welcome into the program. This is your game plan for retirement with Northwestern Ohio's resource for a common sense approach to planning for our financial, investment, and retirement future. He is president and founder of McIntire Retirement Services. We always enjoy and appreciate the time we get to spend with Chris McIntire. Now, Chris, today going to be talking about one of the most important tools that we have to build our way toward retirement, one of the most utilized, and that is the 401k. It's a pretty useful little investment vehicle, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is. And it's probably fair to add in a 403B for people that were our teachers and whatnot. That's their tool for their retirement. If you work for a for-profit corporation, they use what's called a 401k.
Yep. So, I mean, kind of birds of a feather or a rose by a different name. They are almost the same, just a little bit of a different tax codiology.
Yeah, exactly. And, very useful tools, and probably the creation of the 401k, as a, let's call it like a forced savings, if you will, right? Because many people probably wouldn't invest what they would need to if it wasn't automatically deducted out of their paycheck. And, me being an anti-government type person, if people had to pay their income taxes like you and I do, save that money and send it in on a quarterly basis, we'd probably demand a much more efficient government. But since they take it out of our check every time you go to work, most people say, well, they take it out, I don't miss it. If you make money, you're supposed to pay taxes. So, and I know that's not the discussion for today's show, but it is that set it and forget it mentality. It really is.
Well, I'm going to take issue with one element of that comment, which was the forced savings. You do have to voluntarily set it and then forget it. And once it's set up, yes, it's on autopilot, but it is not mandatory. And a lot of people, Chris, unfortunately kind of forego setting it up in the first place. And that's really leading to a part of our retirement crisis here that we face systemically and nationally, where not enough people are prepared as they should be for retirement. So bottom line, step one is, if you've got access to this important tool, utilize it, right, Chris?
Yeah, no question about it. And, you certainly want to, have that disciplined approach that, look, I'm going to put money into it no matter what. We'll curtail our budget. And that, that's a great analogy that Peter brought up. You do have to, voluntarily put yourself into it, and then you can determine how much of your income you can put into it. So, if you're raising kids and you're younger, obviously you need to save money for those, for their college educations and, just everyday living expenses. And then as you get older, a lot of times people will up their contributions to try to make up for what they couldn't do while raising kids. That's very popular, or, very popular ideology with the 401k investing.
And in fact, the government recognizes that and gives older Americans, and I say older, it's relative, 50 plus. I'm getting right there myself, but that the ability to catch up. If we have not made as much progress as we wanted to maybe earlier on, they give us an extra bit of stipend that we can voluntarily deduct to try to catch up in the last home stretch of our working career. So again, these are things that you need to know, ladies and gentlemen, in order to make the most of your financial tools, in order to make the most financial progress. And we're going to be talking about the ins and outs, the pros and cons, the benefits, the disadvantages of the 401k or your employer-sponsored retirement plan today on the program with Chris McIntire, your resource. And if you've got questions, if you would like to review that plan, that investment vehicle, that tool, that 401k or 403b, Chris McIntire does that as part of the planning process there at McIntire Retirement Services. And while it's a great tool, that is just part of the planning process. And you've got to understand where and how to utilize it, when and how to get out of it, what to expect when you do. All of that goes into the discussion. But the investment choices and options that you have, how to make the most best selections, what the allocation, when to rebalance, all of those kind of questions. We'll talk about that on today's program. But specifically for your situation, you need that guidance because we don't get it at the workplace. So pick up the phone and give Chris McIntire a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. 1194, 800-868-1194, or you can go online to McIntyreRetirementServices.com. That's McIntyreRetirementServices.com. So again, Chris, we always want to take advantage of our opportunities to save, to make the most progress. The 401k, a great tool. We do have to set it up. But then once it's set up, once we enroll, then it is basically on autopilot. It is done for us. It's automatic and systematic. And that is a good thing, that the savings gets done. But on the other hand, this is one of those two sides of the coin here, and there's a pro and a con to this. It is so automatic that a lot of people sort of just ignore it and don't do the routine maintenance that they may really benefit from having done.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point there, Peter, is and I see this quite often with folks that, they may have 95% of their money in one particular fund and, a little bit scattered into some other funds. And it might be an all stock fund. It might be an all bond fund. And I think that's probably what has, created the retirement lifestyle funds, that, all right, well, I'm going to retire in the year 2040. So I'm going to put my money in a 2040 fund. And as you get older, then it gradually will reallocate more funds toward the bond side. And that's not the worst thing in the world, unless bonds fall by 20% like they did in 2022. So some of those funds, they're just reacting to the calendar, maybe not necessarily the economic conditions. So, when you talk about routine maintenance, that's kind of what we mean. I mean, some of those things are maybe to set it and forget it, Peter. Does that make sense?
It does. And the target date funds, Chris, that's kind of like autopilot within cruise control. And again, it's a part of the 401k where they tried to make things easier and simpler for savers and workers and investors to sort of have a proper mix. But when a plane is flying, the easy part's sort of cruising up in the air, and there's a little, autopilot, at least there is in the movies. I've never actually been in the cockpit to see, but while they're cruising, they always show that they put it on autopilot, but they always take it off autopilot when it's time to come in for a landing. And that seems to be like the more challenging part, that the autopilot just isn't equipped yet or advanced enough to handle. For an amateur, landing a plane in a movie is always the big challenge, right? The flying is the easy part. Bringing it home is kind of the challenge. But I feel like it's another example where here is a pro and a con. The target date funds sort of put things on that autopilot, but maybe they are not the best equipped to be in autopilot as people are nearing more of that target date.
Yeah. And I'm going to give you another analogy. There was an example. I'm right here on the shore, Lake Erie. A group of people left Kelly's Island out in the lake, put the boat on cruise control, big, $1.5 million boat, put it on cruise control, and that boat ran right into an island.
Oh, no.
It didn't sense that there was danger ahead enough to move. And you hear about it with, I know we have driverless technologies with cars, and all of a sudden somebody gets hit by one of those. So, I don't know, that you want to put your life savings on autopilot either. And that's where, it helps us. We can help take the emotion out of it. And, we're probably as much more on, psychologists or coaches or quarterbacks, if you will, in addition to being investment advisors, because, of all the folks, if you look out there last year in 2023, the market did incredibly well. And how many people thought that the world was going to come to an end and decided to not invest in things? And even, to start the year off here, the market's done quite well. It's just, sometimes we're our own worst enemies, and setting things on autopilot probably isn't always in the client's best interest, would be my point to you, Peter.
Yeah, and maybe another example, out on the freeway, speed limit 65, 70 miles an hour, we might go, right? But on the city streets, it's 45, and the school zone, it's 35, which is fine. We should follow that posted speed limit on a dry, sunny day in the best of conditions. But if there's torrential rain or ice on the road, or conditions aren't optimal, maybe even going that posted speed limit is not recommended. And the target date fund, Chris, does not recognize conditions. It just trucks along at that predetermined algorithm at the posted speed limit regardless. So maybe for like a 20-year-old, the 2065 fund that is targeted 40 years out in the future may be acceptable to get going. But as we truck along in our progress, and especially get toward the home stretch, it really does take a whole lot more monitoring and oversight, with making sure we're making the right choices, making sure that we're doing the best things optimally for conditions, than just putting it on autopilot in a target date fund.
Sure. Yep. And, and so that, as we always point out the pitfalls to anything, right? An autopilot might not be the best interest of a client as they get closer to retirement, but like Peter said, it may be a wonderful thing for somebody who's young and who can handle the risk and, foot to the floor, if you will. Okay. The one of the wonderful benefits that a 401k often has is that match, where the company is helping you to put money into your 401k. They may not offer the pension anymore, but they're putting money into your retirement account, and they may match up to 5% of your salary. Again, depends on where you work. And, that's free money. And Peter and I are self-employed, and we would certainly tell you that, look, if they're offering free money, in almost every case, that's in your best interest. You want to take advantage of that and help build that savings. And as we help people, navigate through this, I've got a lot of clients that are still working, okay, and still contributing to their 401ks. They may have moved an old 401k, or they might be over the age of 59 and a half. And we've done some pre-retirement planning outside of the world of mutual funds, which is simply what most 401ks offer. And we can look at individual stocks, individual bonds, a CD, an annuity, just all the different things you can buy in an IRA that may not be available in that company retirement plan. That's what we help people do.
And a little bit more oversight and assistance with that financial plan, that progress, that retirement planning and structuring, the integration of all of the tools that you have available to you, ladies and gentlemen, bringing it together into a cohesive plan with the Social Security, taking a look proactively at taxation, your retirement accounts, 401ks, IRAs, Roths, traditional, tax-deferred, tax-free. How do you make sense of it all to have confidence moving into retirement? Well, you got to have a plan. And that's what Chris McIntire puts together there at McIntire Retirement Services for his clients each and every day, is the game plan for retirement, a written plan. If you would like to get that put together for your situation, pick up the phone, give a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. Yeah, Chris, in talking about the different aspects of the 401k, and we were going to present both the pros and the cons, you bring up the match. And I was, as you mentioned that, thinking to myself, well, I'm not sure if there's a downside to the match, right? But you did bring one up. Hey, it's great there, but it's not a pension, right?
Yeah, you're correct. It's not necessarily going to give you income for life. And, so you have to be responsible for your own, your own retirement income plan that you're going to put together for yourselves. Having $1 million in a 401k doesn't mean you're not going to run out of money in retirement. And, a lot of things can go on in an economic cycle, right? We do have downturns in the market. We do have geopolitical events. We do have interest rate risk, inflationary issues. There's always something going on out there that could make you, very bearish, very bullish, very neutralish. And, as you get a little bit older, most people, are concerned with, how do we protect what we've created? I still like to grow, but I don't need to grow by 30% a year, because, that door can swing both directions pretty quickly. And I think, now that we're, coming in on it, looks like we're going to have, the presidential candidates are set for the election coming, way down the road here yet. I don't think that's really an economic factor by any stretch. That's so far down the road right now. And, and what will happen with the legislative process, because we call that legislative risk. And that's going to affect your investment pieces as well, tax increases and whatnot. And, I don't want to get off the subject too much here. We're talking about the the 401k, the 403b side of things, and the benefits and the pitfalls that some of these have. And again, the benefits are, look, it's a good way to put money into at work. You dollar cost average. That's one of the big benefits, which means a little bit comes out every paycheck. So when the market is down, as long as you're still putting money in, you're buying pieces, stocks at lower prices or bonds at lower prices. And that's where you're going to get your capital appreciation over time, is the constant, consistent, of putting dollars in. And as you get closer to retirement, you may want to get more conservative. And, as interest rates have risen, for those of you out here, that are in that retirement mode, all right, well, there's other instruments available now that are providing more yield or interest or dividends, than previously. So it's a nice landscape right now to help, build some of these retirement plans for people.
Right. And especially if you've got those older plans out there, ladies and gentlemen, 401ks that have been set up, they were automatic, they were systematic, they were on autopilot, you were making your contributions, but then you left that job. Don't leave those accounts behind. Don't make them so automatic that you forget all about them or forget to do the maintenance that would benefit you in bringing your dollars with you, taking ownership. You do own those dollars, but you don't own the plan that they are in. With a 401k, you are a participant in that plan. So take ownership. You have a whole lot more choices and options. You have another opportunity to do that at 59 and a half with the in-service distribution. And Chris, maybe one of the main reasons why we would want to consider that, we wanted to talk about how useful and how beneficial a 401k is and why people should take advantage. But specifically, a 401k is not the best designed nor intended to get us through retirement. That transition period is very important when we leave our job and leave the paycheck behind. The 401k has been great while we had a paycheck, but it is not the tool that is specifically and best designed generally to get us into and through retirement.
Yeah, no question about it, because you're limited to options. You might have 7 to 12 to 15 different investment options in there, and none of those options typically are going to include, a real safe money strategy, something that's going to spin off a guaranteed income, and I think that's probably why you're seeing more of the 401k providers, the big boys out there, the Fidelities, the Schwabs, the Vanguards of the world are, trying to get to workers within the company plan saying, hey, we can service and help you do things here. You can talk to somebody on a headset any day of the week that you want to, and it might not always be the same person. So, I think I deal with a generation of folks that, want to look across the table at somebody, want to be able to say, look, here's my concerns. And, when you have some experience like you and I do, Peter, is, look, you can read things on people's faces, or if you're sitting with a husband and a wife and one of them is the primary decision maker, right? You can still read what the other spouse might be saying, and you can interject and say, look, you seem more concerned about this than your husband does, for example. Let's talk about that, and try to get through some of those layers where if you're wearing a headset, that's not going to get it.
Right. And there are some additional reasons, Chris, just sort of thinking over a few, that taking money out of a 401k is much more burdensome and cumbersome than had you rolled it over to an IRA, which, by the way, just to remind folks, that transition, moving money from a 401k to an IRA, if done properly and correctly, is not a taxable event, right? That's not where we're going to incur a bill that we owe taxes on it, because we're retaining that tax deferred status. But into retirement, Chris, taking money out of a 401k, like actually withdrawing it, not rolling it over, taking it out to spend it, isn't there like mandatory 20% tax withholdings off the top where we have more control over that inside of an IRA? And isn't it much tougher, if not impossible, in a 401k to set up like automatic recurring monthly distributions if we need monthly income, whereas with an IRA, that's relatively simple?
Sure. Yeah, Peter. And those are some very valid points you bring up, that when you make a distribution from a 401k, there is a 20% mandatory federal tax withholding. And if you're retired, you might not be paying 20% in taxes. You might be paying, 12, for example. So why would you want to overpay the government? Where if you have it in an IRA, then you can tell them how much tax withholding for the federal and the state side of things. And then I think your other analogy there was also very valid, that, 401ks are typically a place to invest money into, not necessarily walk them all the way out through retirement. They would, typically are going to encourage you to roll that into an IRA and look at some of the different things that give you more flexibility. And, obviously that's a lot of what we do. So we help people who have older 401ks from previous retirement plans. So if somebody's listening to the show today, and hey, if you're 50 years old and you got money in an old 401k at a previous employer, you can roll that into an IRA. That's not a taxable event to do that. Okay.
Yep.
It's only taxable if you cash the check yourself. And, we very, very, very rarely ever do anything like that, because you only get 60 days to redeposit it. And think of all the things that could happen in 60 days. So you want that money to go around you to the next financial institution, for example.
Well, Chris, I think that the 401k is not specifically designed to be optimal through retirement, so much that, to that point, companies and the government have both all basically across the board recognized that the 401k is not specifically intended nor best designed for retirement. And that's why, not only with older 401ks, but at a specific age benchmark milestone of 59 and a half, your 401k at that point in time generally becomes portable as well, even if you're continuing to work and contribute and participate and capture the match with new money and new contributions. What you've built up as a life savings to that point, at that point in time, at 59 and a half, you can take control over. And most companies allow this. And in fact, many even encourage it.
Yes, absolutely. And, that is part of the retirement process, if you will, is look, you've retired, you no longer work there. It's probably time to look at what your other options are going to be on the IRA side of things. And, we help people split them and put them in different places even, so that, if they want to start, want something safe and secure or something with an income, we can carve a piece of that off and then have an investment piece, because you probably still are looking for some longer term growth options. And, but outside the IRA world, it's almost limitless, not quite, but almost limitless as to what you can personally invest in over your 401k. And I know we run short on time a lot of times, but Roth 401ks are becoming more and more popular now. So, we don't want to not talk about them. But remember, a Roth 401k is you do not get to deduct your contributions off of your taxes. So if you put $20,000 into a Roth 401k, right, you've paid the income tax on that 20,000. The benefit to that is it grows income tax free, tax deferred, and then when you draw money out of it, it's income tax free. So it's very similar to a 401k in the fact that I'm saving for my long-term retirement plans, just whether or not you're paying taxes on the deposits or and not the withdrawals, or like the traditional 401k, you don't pay tax on anything, contributions, and the growth until you make a withdrawal. So, some of those can make sense depending on the person's individual tax status, where they want to go with it, what their ages are, have they missed the boat, so to speak. Because remember this, you can always convert an IRA or a 401k into a Roth IRA. Okay. Now, we were just talking about Roth 401ks. That's for those of you that are still working, and we would certainly be an advocate of tax-free dollars, but just to make sure that's in the right, it's in your best interest at the time. Because if you're in a really high income tax bracket, you might do better off converting down the road when you retire and you're in a lower income tax bracket. Just try to paint with a broad brush there, Peter. I'll let you refine it here a little bit, buddy.
Yeah, well, I think to that point, Chris, we've got to consider taxes on our retirement nest egg. And it's a great opportunity, a window of opportunity right now to do some of those considerations and some proactive tax planning. And once again here, the 401k is a fantastic tool, but may not offer us all of the options and flexibility and control to be proactive with the tax planning. It is not designed to generate an income in retirement. It is subject to market volatility in a way that maybe near retirees or retirees don't want to subject themselves to big swings in the market and therefore losses of years worth of their life savings. And then the tax implications inside of the 401k cannot be as easily and readily controlled and managed to reduce or in some cases eliminate our tax liability into future years. And so for those reasons, the 401k is a great tool to get us into and through our working career and to build toward retirement, but not the best tool to make the transition into and get us through retirement. And that's why Chris McIntire helps his clients to understand each and every type of account, the type of tools that they have, bring them together into a cohesive plan, consolidate where appropriate and necessary, do the housekeeping, and then do the routine maintenance on an ongoing basis, as well as plan strategically on how to best position your accounts, ladies and gentlemen. If you would like to take a look at your plan for the future, and bring all of those pieces together. Understand the fees that you're paying, the risks that you're taking, the taxes that you'll be liable for, when and how to use various accounts to optimize them, how to make the most out of Social Security, how to pay the least in taxes, all of the what ifs into and throughout what we hope to be decades of enjoyable and confident retirement. That takes careful planning, and Chris McIntire does it each and every day for his clients. Pick up the phone for a no cost, no obligation conversation and time to sit down and review a strategy session to design your game plan for retirement. 800-868-1194. That is 800-868-1194. 800-868-1194, the number to call, or you can go online, McIntireRetirementServices.com. 4 offices conveniently located across Northwest Ohio. And of course, you can meet in person. Chris welcomes that, but you can also start with a phone call or a virtual meeting through the ease and convenience of technology, or go online and learn more. Lots of different episodes of the program out there on lots of different topics, but this is always a popular and important one, Chris, talking about maybe the most utilized tool that we have for investing, the 401k. So we appreciate the time today.
Yeah, my pleasure, guys. Thanks. Good to be with you, everybody. Be safe out there.
Tune into Chris McIntire's full radio program and visit McIntireRetirementServices.com for many additional valuable resources, including other great episodes of Game Plan for Retirement with Chris McIntire. Be sure to subscribe.
The content of this radio show is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. You are encouraged to seek investment, tax, or legal advice from an independent professional advisor. Any investments and/or investment strategies mentioned involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. Advisory services offered through Brookstone Capital Management, a registered investment advisor.
Fiduciary duty extends solely to investment advisory advice and does not extend to other activities such as insurance or broker-dealer services. Advisory clients are charged a quarterly fee for assets under management, while insurance products pay a commission, which may result in a conflict of interest regarding compensation.